The train cut through the mist like a silver blade, carrying Elena back to a place she once swore she'd never see again. 10 years of silence had not dulled the memory of that final night. The trembling of her hands, the echo of betrayal in Claire's voice, and Daniel's eyes that couldn't meet hers. The window reflected a woman she barely recognized, eyes calm but heavy, heart cautious but alive. The closer she came to the coast, the thicker the air became, scented with salt and ghosts. She told herself she was only here for her exhibit, nothing more. Yet beneath her practiced composure, something fragile stirred. Destiny wasn't just calling her home. It was waiting for her reckoning. The air smelled of salt and wet stone when Elena stepped off the train. The town was smaller than she remembered, quieter too, as if time had forgotten to move here. The streets she once ran through as a girl were now lined with shuttered shops and fading paint. A gull cried overhead, sharp and lonely. Every corner whispered a memory she didn't want. She walked past the old bookstore where she and Claire used to share secrets, past the mural Daniel once painted. Her pulse quickened when she saw it still there, his signature half erased by years of rain. She paused, her hand hovering over the wall but didn't touch it. Some ghosts weren't meant to be disturbed. The gallery sat at the edge of the pier, glass and steel against the weathered wood of the docks. Inside, Elena's photographs hung in perfect symmetry, moments of strangers frozen in their quietest truths. The curator greeted her warmly, but she barely heard him. Her gaze fell on one particular image, a woman's hand clutching a wilted rose, light spilling like sorrow through a window pane. It was the only photo she had ever taken for herself. For a moment, she wondered if Daniel or Claire would come. Then she dismissed the thought like a dangerous spark. She was not here for them. She was here to prove she survived. Later that evening, the town prepared for the exhibition's opening. Elena sat alone at a cafe across the street, nursing a cup of coffee gone cold. The chatter around her felt distant, like echoes from another life. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw the gallery lights flicker on, reflections rippling across the puddles. She smiled faintly, realizing that returning here hadn't broken her. It had reminded her of what she'd overcome. But as she looked up, her breath caught. Across the street, under an umbrella, stood a familiar silhouette. Daniel. His presence cut through time like lightning through a storm. She froze, coffee trembling in her hand. Fate had arrived early. She didn't move. Neither did he. The rain between them became a curtain of unspoken words. Daniel's eyes found hers through the downpour, and for a fleeting second, the world stilled. 10 years collapsed into that glance. The love, the betrayal, the silence. A car passed, breaking the spell. By the time she blinked, he was gone, swallowed by the night. Elena exhaled shakily, pressing her hand to her chest. Destiny had opened its first door, and there was no turning back now. The next morning, the town was still draped in silver fog. Elena walked the narrow boardwalk where she once spent summers laughing with Daniel and Claire. Now the laughter existed only as faint echoes carried by the sea breeze. She stopped at the edge of the pier, where time had stopped for her a decade ago. The air was sharp, heavy with the scent of salt and memory. She lifted her camera, capturing the way light fractured across the horizon. Fragile, fleeting. For the first time, she realized she wasn't afraid of remembering anymore. Sometimes, ghosts don't return to haunt you. They return to remind you of what still matters. Later that day, Elena wandered through the marketplace. It hadn't changed. The same worn stalls, the same smell of baked bread and rain-damp wood. An old vendor recognized her, offering a smile that didn't ask questions. She smiled back, feeling both foreign and familiar. Then she noticed the florist's stand. Roses, lilies, and wildflowers. Claire used to love arranging them, always saying flowers healed what words couldn't. Elena reached for a single white rose. Her hand trembled. Forgiveness, she thought, was like this, fragile, delicate, and often painful to hold. That afternoon, she passed the town square, and time betrayed her again. The old fountain still stood at its center, worn smooth by years of wishes. For a heartbeat, she saw them there. Claire, carefree, dancing barefoot in the water. Daniel, smiling as he played his guitar. The sound of the present dimmed, replaced by a younger version of herself running toward them, alive and unbroken. She blinked, and the vision vanished, leaving only the fountain and the silence. Nostalgia had a cruel kindness. It let you feel warmth right before it reminded you how cold the world had become. Evening settled with a quiet heaviness. Elena wandered toward the cliffs overlooking the sea, where she and Daniel used to escape when the world felt too small. The wind was stronger here, carrying the whisper of the waves against the rocks below. She sat on a bench carved with initials. Theirs, barely visible now beneath moss. The horizon bled orange into violet as dusk approached. She closed her eyes, letting the wind move through her hair like time itself. Somewhere beyond the horizon, she imagined Daniel looking at the same sky. The thought ached, but softly. Like an old song, she still remembered every word to. That night, the gallery lights glowed softly against the rain-slick streets. Elena stayed late, preparing for the opening, her fingers brushing over the framed photographs. Each image told a story of strangers finding beauty in pain, perhaps her own reflection, scattered across others. As she adjusted the final frame, the door opened behind her. She turned, expecting the curator, but froze. Daniel stood there, older, quieter, holding an umbrella dripping with rain. For a long moment, neither spoke. The years between them dissolved in the hush of the gallery, replaced by something fragile and electric: recognition, regret, and 1,000 unsaid words. For a long moment, Elena and Daniel just stared at each other. The silence between them was alive, trembling, fragile, heavy with everything that had never been said. He looked older, worn by years that hadn't been kind. She noticed the lines around his eyes, the way he held himself like someone carrying invisible weight. When he finally spoke her name, his voice cracked like glass. Elena, she didn't answer. The air in the gallery thickened, the hum of rain outside fading into stillness. He stepped closer, but she took half a step back. 10 years couldn't undo what one betrayal had broken. Yet his presence felt like gravity, and she couldn't walk away either. Daniel broke the silence first. "I came because I saw your name in the papers," he said softly. "I didn't know if I should." Elena's lips parted, but no words came. He continued, "I never stopped thinking about you." That confession landed like a wound reopened. Her voice was calm, steady. "You thought about me while you built a life with her." He looked down, shame flickering in his eyes. That life fell apart, Elena. She wanted to feel vindicated, but all she felt was tired. The rain beat harder against the windows, echoing the pulse of two hearts that once moved in the same rhythm, and now didn't know how to start again. As they spoke, a shadow appeared in the doorway. Claire. Her reflection caught the gallery's glass wall before her voice broke the silence. "I didn't think I'd see this again." Elena turned slowly, her pulse tightening. Claire looked different now, softer somehow, but with eyes that carried years of regret. "You look well," Claire whispered. Elena nodded once, the old ache swelling beneath her calm. Daniel's jaw clenched, the air thickened with shared history. The three of them stood suspended in memory, caught in the cruel symmetry of fate. The woman who was betrayed, the one who betrayed, the one who betrayed, and the man who broke them both. No one spoke for a while. The sound of the sea outside filled the spaces between them. Claire stepped closer, her voice trembling. "I wanted to see you, to tell you I'm sorry." Elena stared at her, searching for the girl she once called sister. "Sorry," she whispered. "You took everything from me." Claire's eyes shone with tears. "And I lost it all. for a fleeting moment. Compassion flickered through Elena's bitterness, but it passed quickly. She turned toward the window, unwilling to let the past take her twice. The silence that followed wasn't forgiveness. It was exhaustion. A mutual recognition that love had burned them all. When Claire finally left, the door closed with a whisper. The gallery felt heavier than before. Daniel lingered, watching Elena gather her things. "I didn't ask her to come," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. Her tone was soft, but not forgiving. She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing against the gallery floor. "Good night, Daniel." He wanted to stop her, to explain, to ask if she still dreamed of him, but he stayed silent. Through the window, he watched her step into the rain, the same rain that had greeted her the night before. Only now, it didn't wash anything away. It simply revealed what was left. That night, Elena sat in her rented apartment overlooking the sea, her reflection trembling in the rain-streaked glass. The silence pressed in like a weight. Every photograph on the wall seemed to stare back at her, reminding her of moments she'd captured but never lived. She poured herself a glass of wine, the red glimmering like memory under lamplight. Outside, thunder rolled over the cliffs, echoing her pulse. She wanted to hate them both again. Daniel for his weakness, Claire for her betrayal. But time had blurred her anger into something quieter, something sadder. The truth was that she had loved them both once, and losing them had carved out who she became. The storm outside felt like an answer. Some wounds don't heal. They simply learn to live inside you. Sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it brought memories instead of rest. She dreamed of the night everything ended. The party was loud, golden light spilling from the old villa. She had gone searching for Daniel, smiling, naive, unaware. Then she saw them. Claire's hands in his hair, his lips pressed against hers. The sound of laughter shattered into silence. The air in her lungs turned to glass. She remembered standing in the doorway, her pulse roaring louder than the music, the champagne glass slipping from her hand. It wasn't the betrayal itself that broke her. It was the realization that love could die so quietly in the middle of a song. The dream dissolved, leaving Elena breathless. She sat upright, heart pounding. The storm had passed, but her room was drenched in gray light. She rose and opened the window, letting the cool morning air wash over her. Somewhere in the distance, church bells began to ring. She thought of Daniel, what he must have felt, what he never said. Part of her wanted to believe he had loved her, truly, even if he had failed her. But another part, the one that had survived the years, knew that love without loyalty was only memory. And yet, in that fragile morning stillness, she found herself whispering his name, as if testing whether forgiveness might sound like his voice. Meanwhile, Daniel walked the empty streets of the town, the rain long gone, but the air still heavy. He passed the churchyard where his mother's funeral would be held in 2 days. His reflection appeared in every puddle. Older, lonelier, burdened. He stopped near the pier, staring at the ocean Elena once loved to photograph. Guilt had followed him like a shadow for 10 years. He had tried to love Claire, but their marriage had been built on ashes. In every argument, in every silence, Elena's name lingered like a ghost between them. Now she was here again, and the weight of his choices crushed him anew. He realized redemption was not something you earn, it was something you beg for and may never receive. Later that morning, Claire sat in her small kitchen, staring at an untouched cup of coffee. The walls felt too quiet. On the table beside her lay the letter she had written to Elena 100 times and never sent. She picked it up, unfolded it, unread the words again. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to be you. The admission trembled in ink, raw and pitiful. Tears blurred the paper as she pressed it to her chest. For the first time, she understood that her betrayal wasn't born of love. It was born of envy. And envy, once it consumes what it covets, always ends in loneliness. Evening fell like a soft bruise over the town. The air was thick with salt and the scent of rain about to return. Elena walked along the pier, her camera slung at her side, the world tinted in blue-gray twilight. She didn't plan to see him again. Not tonight, not ever, but fate, as always, had its own cruel rhythm. Daniel appeared at the far end of the pier, a dark silhouette against the restless sea. He didn't speak at first. The sound of waves crashing between them filled the silence like a heartbeat. When he finally whispered her name, she turned. The years folded. The distance vanished. And for the first time in a decade, they stood facing the storm together. "I never stopped loving you," Daniel said, voice trembling against the rising wind. Elena's eyes glistened, but she shook her head slowly. "You loved her too." He took a step closer. "Not the way I loved you." The rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavy, each drop erasing the boundaries between them. "Then why did you leave me?" she whispered. He closed his eyes, rain streaming down his face like penance. "Because I was weak. Because I didn't deserve you." The words carried all the weight of his regret. Elena looked away, tears lost in the storm. Love wasn't something you could return to. It was something you learned to survive after it burned. Claire's voice cut through the storm like a fracture. "Daniel?" They both turned. She stood near the boardwalk, soaked, breathless, eyes wide with desperation. Elena froze. The moment shattered. Claire's face was pale, her tears mixing with the rain. "Please," she cried. "Don't do this here!" Daniel stepped back, guilt written across every feature. Claire's sob broke through the roar of the sea. "You think I haven't paid enough?" she shouted. "You think I haven't lived with it every day?" Elena's heart clenched. The three of them stood beneath the storm's rage, not as rivals, but as broken pieces of the same story. And for the first time, none of them knew who to hate anymore. The storm swelled to its peak. Claire's voice broke as she stepped closer. "I loved you both," she cried, her words lost in the wind. "And I ruined all of it." Elena's anger finally cracked, replaced by sorrow. "Why, Claire," she shouted. "You had everything." Claire shook her head, sobbing. "No, I had your shadow. I wanted to be enough." Lightning flared, illuminating their faces, three reflections of pain, none of them innocent, all of them human. Elena stepped forward, her tone soft now. "You were enough. You just didn't believe it." The rain softened, and for a fleeting second, forgiveness hovered between them like a fragile truce. The rain eased into mist as dawn approached. The three stood silent, soaked and trembling, their hearts emptied of rage. Claire rose slowly, her expression hollow but lighter. Daniel looked at Elena, his voice low. "Can you ever forgive me?" She met his gaze for a long moment, then shook her head. Gently, not in anger but in truth. "Forgiveness isn't something I give you," she said. "It's something I'm still finding for myself." She turned away, walking toward the lightening horizon. Behind her, Daniel and Claire stood side by side for the first time, both understanding that love had never been enough to save them. But perhaps now, it could teach them how to let go. The morning after the storm, the town seemed cleaner, but emptier. Elena walked through the quiet streets, camera in hand, photographing puddles and broken umbrellas. As if capturing the aftermath of her own heart, she felt lighter, almost free. Yet something in the air felt off, a strange tension that clung to the mist. As she crossed the square, she saw a familiar figure in the distance, Claire, stepping out of a cafe, smiling faintly when she saw her. They exchanged a silent nod. For a heartbeat, Peace seemed possible, but then the screech of tires tore through the calm, followed by a shattering crash. Time fractured. The sound of metal and breaking glass echoed through the morning air, and everything changed again. Elena's breath caught as the world tilted. The car swerved violently, slamming into a lamppost just beside the cafe. Claire's body hit the pavement, her coffee cup rolling across the stones, spilling into the cracks. For a moment, everything was silent. Too silent. Then sound returned all at once. Shouts. Footsteps. The wail of someone calling for help. Elena dropped her camera and ran, heart hammering. Kneeling beside Claire, she reached for her hand. Blood streaked her sleeve. Claire's eyes fluttered open, the faintest smile trembling on her lips. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did," Elena said, voice breaking. "I'm here." Minutes later, sirens split the air. Daniel arrived running, breathless, panic written across every feature. "Claire!" he shouted, falling to his knees beside her. Elena moved aside, trembling, watching his hands shake as he brushed Claire's hair back. Claire smiled weakly. "Don't cry," she whispered. "You two finally look like you belong in the same frame." Daniel's tears fell freely. Elena stood in the background, torn between grief and disbelief. The paramedics arrived, their voices urgent, movements precise. As they lifted Claire onto the stretcher, Elena felt the weight of forgiveness pressing against her chest, raw, heavy, but real. At the hospital, the sterile scent of disinfectant filled the air. Elena sat in the corridor, staring at the floor tiles, the rhythmic hum of machines echoing through the hall. Daniel paced nearby, his face blank, his hands restless. "She's stable," a nurse finally said, and they both exhaled as if they'd been holding their breath for a lifetime. When Daniel sat beside her, he looked at Elena. Really looked at her. "You stayed," he said quietly. She nodded. "Because once she stayed for me." Their eyes met in a silence that didn't need words. In that moment, forgiveness became less about the past and more about surviving what was left of it. Hours passed. When Claire finally woke, the room was dim and quiet, the rain whispering against the window. Elena stood by her bedside, Daniel on the other side. Claire's eyes fluttered open, weak but lucid. "You both came," she murmured, smiling faintly. Elena took her hand. "We never really left," she said. Claire's gaze drifted toward the window, where dawn was breaking again. "Maybe this is how it ends," she whispered. Not in anger, just understanding. Her eyes closed as exhaustion pulled her under, her breathing steady. Daniel reached for Elena's hand. She didn't pull away this time. The past had already burned. All that remained was light. Days passed, and the town slowly returned to its rhythm. Waves rolling, gulls crying, lives continuing as if fate hadn't cracked open their hearts. Elena stayed longer than she intended, spending quiet hours at the hospital. Claire recovered slowly, her voice softer, her eyes gentler. Daniel spent most of his time by his mother's old house, tending to things left undone. One afternoon, Elena walked to the cliffs where she and Daniel had once carved their initials. The moss had grown thicker, nearly erasing them, and she smiled faintly. Time, it seemed, knew how to heal in its own quiet way. She lifted her camera and captured the horizon, the place where sky met sea, and endings became beginnings. At the hospital, Daniel sat beside Claire as she rested, her fragile frame wrapped in warmth and soft light. She looked at him with eyes that no longer carried bitterness. "You should see her before you go," she whispered. "Elena deserves a goodbye." He hesitated, unsure if he deserved one. Claire smiled faintly. "Don't think of it as forgiveness. Think of it as peace." Her voice was tender, tired. Daniel nodded. tears glinting in his eyes. When he kissed her forehead, she closed her eyes, finally at ease. For the first time in years, the silence between them wasn't heavy. It was healing. Elena's final evening in the town came quietly. The gallery had closed its exhibition, and she lingered among the empty walls, each photograph reflecting fragments of her own story. Daniel arrived near closing time, hesitant but determined. They walked together along the dim aisles, neither speaking at first. "I saw Claire," he finally said. "She told me to say goodbye properly this time." Elena smiled softly. "Then don't say it. Just mean it." They stopped before one photograph, a storm over the sea, lightning splitting the horizon. "You took this?" he asked. "The night I saw you again," she replied. And for a brief moment, silence said everything their hearts still carried. Outside, night embraced the town with a gentle hush. Daniel walked Elena to the station just as he had 10 years before, though everything between them had changed. The platform glowed with amber light. The air carried the scent of the sea. "Will you ever come back?" he asked quietly. She looked at him, her eyes glistening but calm. "Maybe. But if I don't, that's okay too." He nodded, understanding. As the train approached, she placed a hand on his cheek, not as a lover, but as someone who had once loved deeply. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me remember without pain." Then she stepped onto the train, her silhouette fading behind the glass as it carried her away from everything that once defined her. Weeks later, Elena's exhibition opened in the city. The Weight of Water. Each photograph told the story of survival, forgiveness, and time. Among them was a single image of the pier after the storm, empty, glistening under dawn light. Visitors stood quietly before it, sensing something unspoken within its stillness. As the lights dimmed, Elena watched from the corner, her expression peaceful. In her heart, she carried no bitterness, no regret, only gratitude for the love that had once been, and the strength that came after. Outside the gallery, rain began to fall softly, as if the past had come to bless her farewell. And when a single tear rolled down her cheek, it wasn't sorrow, it was release.